So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this conversation. Today we're welcoming Simone Valle de Souza from Michigan State University. She's going to talk about her team's work on labor requirement for leafy green production. This is a project that her team has been working on for about a year. Is that it? Around a year?
3 years now.
Oh, 3 years. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And she's at the end of phase 1 and starting to begin phase 2 of this research. That's what we're going to be talking about today. This is part of the project called OptimIA, which is it's a project with multiple universities that is funded by the USDA. The universities involved are Michigan State University, University of Arizona, the Ohio State University, and Purdue University. And we at OLAB really love to talk about upcoming research. And we had a conversation with Simone a couple months ago about this research, and we wanted to bring it to a number of people to get the pulse on what's going on with this research and continue this discussion. The research is specifically on leafy green production in indoor agriculture, so both vertical farming and greenhouse production. Yeah, that's it. And so people are joining from really everywhere, so really welcome everyone. You're welcome to have your camera on if you'd like. We always like a lively conversation. The audio will be off for now, but as Simone has mentioned, she's really happy for people to jump in to ask for clarifying questions, and we'll keep the bigger question for the end of the presentation. And this presentation is really arriving at an interesting time for vertical farming and indoor farming. We've seen a big rise in the number of farms around the world, and right now there are changes that are happening. And I don't know if some of you have read this article last week that came out in Agro News that caught my attention. It's called "Is Vertical Farming Entering an Ice Age?" And this article brings in a number of experts from several from the field, several experts from the field that talk about the fact that the sector is seeing some start of some restructuration, some closing farms, and it's discussing some potential causes of that. And the energy crisis in Europe is one of the potential driver of that. But something that I read really in this article that was pretty loud in the conclusions was that the lack of collaboration can sometimes be a deterrent for the growth of the sector. So what people are saying is that there are new players that are tended to maybe reinvent the wheel instead of building on what is known, and this is something that is observed. And in terms of economic research, this is something that really interests us as well, because there isn't really publicly available data on the economics of vertical farming and indoor farming at this point. At OLAB, this is something that we're working on. For those who don't know us too well, we're a nonprofit research center in Montreal, Quebec. And our work is really to support the development of urban agriculture in Quebec. And when we talk about urban agriculture, we talk about all forms like commercial as well as community agriculture and domestic. That one of the things that we're looking at is indoor production of leafy green, especially. And so we've done a few publications on that. you can see, maybe we can send some links if you want. We've published an economic paper on the production of leafy green in container farms. That was last year, and we continue to collect data from time to time and publish it every time we can. And bringing people like Simone to talk about their research. So this is kind of a call for collaboration. I think a lot of fields in agriculture have a lot of economic data, and they have indicators, KPIs for technical aspects and for economic aspects. And that's the work that Simone is doing is also to build this for vertical farming. So this is very welcome, and it is a good time to be having this conversation. So without further ado, I'll introduce Simone. Simone, when you're ready, you can turn on your mic and share your screen.
Thank you, Adeline, and thank you everyone for being here today. Let me share my screen here. Is that the right one? Yes, good. Yes, so thank you everyone for coming here. So thank you for the introduction, Adeline. I am Simone, and I work with the OptimIA. Our project with OptimIA is for optimizing indoor agriculture. The project has been happening for 3 years, but you're right, Adeline. In terms of the survey, we started the labor survey a year ago. So I'm the lead of the OptimIA economics team, and as part of the larger group that Adeline described. And at the beginning of 2022, we distributed a pilot survey trying to identify labor requirements in controlled environment agriculture. So today I'm going to be presenting the very preliminary results of this phase 1, which was a pilot survey. We just identified improvements we could do in the survey, and now we are releasing the phase 2 of the CA labor survey. And we are here to invite to show you the preliminary results and to invite you to participate, because with more data, as I'm going to show you soon, with more data we can get even more results. This survey, all the way from the beginning, has been in a partnership with AU Lab. Thank you, Adeline, and thank you all in AU Lab helping us with that. So without further ado, actually, let me first start by finding out how to move it to the next screen. There we go. So before I show you these preliminary results, I just want to make clear what's the purpose of this research. The key word here is benchmark. We are working to define standards against which industry can compare their performance. So I'm often asked, what are the key performance indicator, or ask me to define efficiency. Well, this is a relative concept, and to define efficiency, we have to look at the industry as a whole. So in that sense, benchmarking will then help us to do a competitive analysis, for example. So through the competitive analysis, looking at the key performance indicators, growers can identify strategic advantages over competitors, but they can also together help the industry growth, like Adeline just described, working together to promote industry growth. And it also serves for monitoring performance. So the entire industry goes through changes in the economic climate. If we have key performance indicators over time, a grower can compare the industry performance with their own, and they can also see how others are being affected by specific shocks in the economy, like we just saw, with the COVID-19 pandemic. And also, it's an overtime projection, so we can look at the future trends. And these key performance indicators will also help growers to identify the processes, how they are going in particular process, identify if they can improve a process or if they have improved the process. And once all these standards or performance metrics are defined, then the grower can set a goal and plan for the future, right? So ultimately, what we want to do here, the purpose of this research, is to support industry growth. In this specific project, we are looking at key performance indicators that are related with labor in controlled environmental agriculture. So we want to identify an indicator of labor efficiency, and that can be as in a production per hour labor or per area. And we also want to identify the trade-offs between OPEX and CAPEX in this industry. You are all participating in industry, you know that there is a technology, there is a plethora of systems being developed and at a price, and we want to evaluate whether or not it's worthwhile investing capital in a specific technology. And the other part of this survey, of this project, is to describe the CEA workforce. We want to identify what specific skills are required in that environment. And then with that, we can provide advice on what workforce training is required. And we can identify sources of labor. We can identify, I don't know if you are in Canada, are experiencing the same that we are here in the US. We have an extreme shortage in workforce. So we want to identify further labor. So back into the survey. To that end that I just described, we distributed that pilot survey, and it was the beginning of 2022. And in that first distribution, we've got about 75 responses. It was worldwide. We obtained about 75 responses, but you will notice by the numbers you start summing up here that not everyone answered every question. So we're going to be presenting today some of the data we collected, and we will invite you to participate in phase 2, like I said before, so we collect more data. So as we're talking about key performance indicators, we have to know where the farm is located, because specifically if we're talking about labor-related KPIs, we need to know which country this is related with. So we are asking in this survey for you to report where the farm is located. Now, in terms of production systems, the survey, like Adeline described, is focused on controlled environmental agriculture. So we've got greenhouse, indoor farms, and container farms as well. In the pilot survey, this was a multiple choice question. So respondents actually chose, oh, I do have a container, but I also have a greenhouse, which is normal. And we did not anticipate that. And with that, we had difficulty in increasing numbers of specific data, like indoor farming specific or greenhouse specific. So in phase 2, we are asking you to, if you have more than one type of farming systems, choose one at the time. So you have a container and a greenhouse, start reporting on the container. So run the survey for the container farm, and then pretty please with cherry on top, if you have time for another survey, you open again and you do one for your greenhouse as well. So, but whatever you report for container to be only for the container. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so another question we have in this survey and in the pilot survey was the crops that are grown and the maturity at harvest. Of course, different crops and different maturity or production systems will require different labor. Or some crops would be more labor intensive than others, better saying. So once we get the data, we can adjust. Once we have enough data, we can adjust results to specific crops, and if they are grown to maturity, if they are harvested as baby greens or between baby and mature, which is being called the teen greens in industry, or if they're growing microgreens, and the crop that they grow. So in these preliminary results, we identified that most farms growing lettuce, not most, but 25 of the reporting farms that grow lettuce are growing that to maturity. But there is 19 farms there who are also growing as baby green. Now, if you look at kale and spinach, for example, the majority would be growing to baby greens only, so harvesting earlier. In terms of proportion, as it expands, the percentage of farms growing that particular cultivar increases, okay? So if you look at the orange, these are the percentage of these farms, reporting farms, that are growing crops up to baby greens. Spinach and tatsoi and kale are predominantly grown as baby greens. Now you look at the yellow, it points out the lettuce being the large proportion growing lettuce to mature size. And in terms of microgreens, we have the other leafy greens and other herbs and basil grown to microgreens. So this is a general idea of what the industry is producing in CEA. We also ask in this survey where these specific types of farm are located in terms of urban, suburban, or rural areas. If we are to identify source of labor, we want to know also where the workers are. Are they in the urban areas? Do they live in suburban areas or rural? And also this will have implications on the wage paid as well, because urban areas they reportedly have higher per capita income because of the higher cost of living in the urban area. So we also have to account for that. In these preliminary numbers, as you can see, we've got 36, only enough to complete this, but it's already a good, a sample. Greenhouse seems to be 100% of these reporting greenhouses are located in rural areas, containers in urban areas, and indoor farms spread between suburban and urban, but most predominantly in urban areas. Again, this is just an initial look at a few data points. So 100% of these greenhouses that reported to be exclusive a greenhouse were in the rural areas, but it's not necessarily the truth for the industry. So now we come to the wages. So wages paid in the industry, and we also asked about the benefits that they offer. And you see a little note on the side. For benefits, we mean the taxes, health benefits, unemployment benefits, and retirement. And this is reported as a percentage of the wage paid. You can see here that indoor farms seem to be paying a little bit higher wages than the greenhouse farms. But once again, remember that indoor farms are mostly located in urban and suburban areas, And if the per capita income is higher in the urban areas, then that should be a reflection of that. And in terms of benefits also, which happens as a percentage, we also have more or less the same actually. In fact, the distribution is narrower when you look at the greenhouses. By the way, when you complete the survey in phase 2, you will notice that these values for wages are closer to each other because we've got most of the data within a larger gap. So these values will be slightly different, but then it will help us collect a better distribution of these values and percentages paid as benefits. And then once we have these numbers, we can compare with the national average data. So in terms of USA, if you look at these NICE codes for greenhouse and nursery production, and then this is the umbrella code, the greenhouse and nursery production. And then under that comes the food crops grown on the cover, and then specifically other food crops, which includes our lettuce and specialty crops that are grown into CEA. I put these three together here just to have a look specifically on the gray area, on the gray distribution here, which is for lettuce grown in CEA, how the weekly average wages have increased above the total greenhouse, and it's pretty close to the food crops grown on the cover. Now, going back to the survey, our reported between $15 and $17 per hour put us back to about $700 a week, and which is just pre-pandemic levels of wages. Now, if we look at the context of Canada, for example, it's more or less the same in terms of pre-pandemic, and until today, this is 2021 data, so it's comparable with 2021 data. A $20 per hour in Canadian dollar would be the equivalent to $15, $16 US. Now, if you look at a different country, if you look at Brazil, for example, then the base for comparison change, and I'm showing these numbers to emphasize again how important it is to allocate all the information to a particular context. So if you look at the data from Brazil, that's going to be a different context because we have here a median of wage paid for agricultural workers of 9 reals, which is equivalent to $1.70 or 229 Canadian dollars. So it's a different context, a different scenario, and we have to compare apples and apples, right? And pears and pears. We also asked about the annual production. Yes?
Just that there was a question in the chat.
Oh, sure.
Just for a clarifying question, I think it would be helpful for everyone. It was other wages, the wage data is driven by staff salary, correct? And not the salary for managers and owner, right?
Oh, yes, thank you very much for that. I meant to say that and I forgot. So the pilot survey only asked about the production-related activities and support activities, and specifically said that we were not including administration, marketing, and finance. So the salary of the CEO is not included. None of them is included. It's just for the production area and supporting activities. However, phase 2 brings one more question asking you, what is the proportion of total payroll that is dedicated to finance, marketing, and administration? And just give us that proportion. We don't need to know the exact numbers. And even if we had, this is all the aggregated data, and none of the responses will be identified. So we only ask as a percentage of total payroll, right? So we're talking about key performance indicators, right? So we do ask what's the total annual production per area. And we give an option for you to reply in terms of pounds per square feet or kilos per square meter. And then that gets converted. And then we again work with the aggregated data. If you're reporting on a vertical farming, we want you to report the total growing area as the combining shelf space for all the varieties you grow or that you're reporting on. We then can estimate a KPI in terms of production per area, which can be then extrapolated to daily production. What we see here in this preliminary result is a higher efficiency in terms of annual production in pounds per square feet for the indoor farms and the greenhouse farms. I also brought here the equivalent in terms of kilos per square meter, if it's easy to relate with. And again, I mean, it's the same proportions, just the numbers that change. But it would be interesting to hear from you guys actually at the end when we do the discussion, if these values are actually comparable to what you experience in your farm. That would be great, and a good feedback. And again, if you would be kind to fill in the response survey. I'm going to stop saying that, I promise. Another KPI that we can extract from this survey is daily labor per area. So this data is normally reported as in hours per square feet or hours per square meter. But we just convert into minutes here because hours would be too small for numbers, just to give a better idea. So this is reported as in daily labor in minutes per area of square feet, or you can also see minutes per square meter. We can see by the distribution here that there is no one size fits all answer, right? With a bigger data set, we will be able to estimate this daily labor per area for particular crops, for the particular choice of cycle length, location of the farm, and types of production systems. And then with that, as a grower, you can identify where do you sit in relation to the rest of the industry and whether you require further workforce training to achieve higher efficiency to industry standards, I suppose, right? Now, the second part of the survey is in relation to automation and a description of work requirement. You will have a series of questions. It's not too time consuming because it's just a matter of one click answering each one of the survey. But we will ask you about labor that is applied for production-related activities, support activities, and we will then ask if these specific tasks within a production-related activity is manual, as in fully manual, or it's partially automated or fully automated, or if you don't have that task in your farm. That will give us information first about the OPEX and CAPEX trade-offs that we want to analyze as we look at automation. And it will also inform us about workforce training. and the training requirements, and also about the source of labor, as in where do we find the specific workers for specific tasks. By the way, the definition of these production-related activities and tasks might be a bit simple, but this is what we came up with focus groups that we organized with industry representatives here in the US. And also, the more you add, the longer the survey goes, and then it's harder for you to complete. So we kind of try to focus, but you will see that in every one of these questions, you will see an option for other, so you can add other tasks that you have. Please welcome to do that. And the option, we don't have this task, also give us information about activities that are performed in different types of production systems. And then our response so far for the preliminary data shows us that production-related activities takes up to 77% of labor in an indoor farm and a little bit less in greenhouses, while support activities always below 50%, but about 20% in indoor and 30% in greenhouse. Then when we go specifically into the production-related activities, between activities, right, cultivation and harvest and post-harvest takes most of the time of labor, and specific to harvest and post-harvest more so in the greenhouses. And oops, there. Yeah, so, and we also have indoor farms, on the other hand, requiring more cleaning and sanitation, requiring more labor hours in cleaning and sanitation. Looking at support activities, labor time requirements in both indoor farm and greenhouses is larger for food safety control, even more so in indoor farms. And indoor farms also have a significant more labor requirements in terms of system and data control, probably reflecting the automations and systems installed in an indoor farm. While if you look at the greenhouses, they also require a little bit more in terms of labor for integrated pest management than indoor farms. So with these answers, we can then put them all together on a weighted distribution, including all production-related stage and support activities, and identify what's the percentage of labor that goes in each one of these areas. And we are also estimating that perhaps there will be a difference in terms of wage per hour paid for different activities. We still have to investigate that. We've seen in data, in reported USDA data, difference on that. But that will be applied. So there is another thing too that I'm going to give you a heads up here. The distribution of labor here will also be used in another part of the OptimIA project, where we are doing the optimization of profit in general, right? But we have to consider the labor. And for example, if we have different scenarios, a recent project we are developing, we were comparing what's the economic result from growing up to baby greens or to grow lettuce up to the full head mature size. So would you benefit from harvesting more often a smaller plant, or would you rather wait and take advantage of the fast grow rate at the end and harvest a larger lettuce head? So to do that comparison, we need to know if the time in harvesting that is taken for baby greens, because you're harvesting more often, or and the time of harvest taken for growing it until full head. So this is just a simple example, but you will be seeing soon the results of that analysis as well. By the way, feel free to contact me if you need more information on that.
And
so,
Simone,
yes?
One question, one clarifying question on those pie charts from Ed Weinberg. Are the committed hours for another activity that would qualify as other? Was there anything there? Was it part of the responses? Was there other activity that people reported on? Sorry.
Yes, there were, but not significant enough to enter the data that we could work with. So there was one mention or another, but some of them we identify as being something that we have already mentioned, but it was misinterpreted. So that qualifies as the one we have already mentioned. So I suppose the short answer is not enough differences to report.
Maybe Ed, if you have something in mind that is missing and that you think should be included, feel free to mention it.
Yeah, correct. Thanks, Adeline. So then if we look in terms of automation now, we asked about fully manual, partially automated, or fully automated. Fully manual is the blue line. So we can see here the predominance of the blue line in these charts for indoor farms, which is not exactly what we were expecting, because we read and we see so much automation in indoor farms, and we were expecting actually more of the gray area being shown here. But in fact, there is a lot of manual work still happening in indoor farms. Specifically, if you look in terms of distribution and logistics and cleaning, so there's a lot of manual labor still happening. And even more we see for the greenhouses that are reporting here. Very little automation for greenhouses. So these are percentages of, like I described before, the wider, the larger the percentage of farms spending that time, spending manual labor in that particular task within the production stage. Hope that's making sense here. But please ask questions if it's not. And as you will kindly provide to us this detailed data, we can actually get into more details, like, for example, which specific data and the distribution between specific tasks. We can see that seeding, for example, in the indoor farms, where is it there? Seeding in the indoor farms is evenly distributed in this sample between fully manual and partially automated. And we see fully manual activities in greenhouses for nutrient preparation, media preparation, transportation, and scouting, for example, and more of the automation happening for seeding, interestingly. And we also have fully automated seeding in indoor farms, and we don't see in these greenhouses. And it can tell us also more information about those activities that we gave the option. We don't have this specific task. And we can see here that some of this, 20-something% of these indoor farms don't actually have the transplanting, scouting, or even more the transplanting and nutrition preparation. So that's interesting to know what skills are required in specific types of production systems. And then we can see in more details. Oh, yes, that's an interesting one. The produce washing, which came in this sample as a majority for indoor, and everyone in greenhouse not having the produce washing task. And this specifically has to be associated with the cycle, right? Are they growing to full? Are they growing to baby leaves only, or to full mature heads? If they don't have trimming, they're probably growing only to babe stage or microgreens. So all of that will be interesting to look at when we have a larger data set. And we have more about cleaning and sanitation, mostly fully manual. We don't see much evidence here of logistics, delivery, warehouse operations happening in the greenhouses, but we do see some warehouse, some indoor farms that also don't have warehouse. They're possibly delivering directly to the client. In terms of support activities, mostly manual in greenhouse and split between manual and partially automated or fully automated in indoor farms. System and data control, fully automated in indoor farms. And that's the end. Yeah, sorry, I should have anticipated the end. So this is what we've got so far. And I don't know if I said that already. We are inviting you to participate in the phase 2 CEA labor survey. I've got the link here, but you also find in the AU Lab website, right, Adeline? And you can contact me anytime if you have questions, if you want me to send a link. Another suggestion that I'm happy to do, I was asked if I could provide a PDF file of the survey. Yes, I can. Yes, I have. So if you feel like you want to sit down and think about your answers before you you hit the link and start completing the survey, send me an email. I'm happy to forward the PDF to you. Okay, and do we still have time for some discussion? I would love to have questions and discussions.
Absolutely, yeah, and there are a few questions. And before we jump to the questions, I wanted to mention that in the audience today, there are people from farms. There's people from the broader ecosystem of vertical farming and greenhouse production. And so that's wonderful, and you're all very welcome to continue getting to learn about this field. But one ask that I would have for those of you who are part of the ecosystem is to talk about the survey around you, talk to your network, and share the link. This video is really a way for us to tell you about how the data is going to be shown. It's kind of a way for you to see what to expect. The data so far, I think we can say it's not conclusive. It has to be taken quite with precaution, definitely. However, this data, once we have more responses, I think we'll probably give some very interesting information. So please share. Do you want to say, Simone, how long the survey is going to be open for?
I plan to have it open all the way through January, so you have time during your holidays to complete the survey. Not during, but before or after the holidays, 2 surveys.
Okay, great. There's a few clarifying questions that I didn't get to ask you during the presentation. Maybe you can go back to some slides if you don't mind, Simone. There was how many of your greenhouse survey use natural versus artificial light? Your mic is off, Simone.
too many tasks to perform at the same time here. I'm muting mic, sharing the screen. So thank you for reminding me of that. I should have said we did not ask that in the pilot survey, but we are now asking in phase 2. So we will have this information.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that will bring more clarity to the data. Another question. One was, how did you calculate the labor minutes? In the slide where you have the number of minutes per square foot, I think. You want to go back to that slide?
Yes. Well, I can go back to the slide, but the actual question asks about the number of hours. Is this the one? Yeah. Asks about the number of hours of labor that the company, the farm, needs through the year. So it's an annual data. And then we also have the production area. Yeah.
So it's
we try to ask simplified overall annual data, which you can draw from your books without revealing details.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let me see if there, and feel free to add a question in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask your question, you're welcome to as well. There was one question about the growing area that you've been asking. For greenhouses, does the total area include external stormwater ponds to catch leakage? Would that contribute to the better area production for indoor farming?
This is a very good idea. We don't ask about that, and we don't ask about that in phase 2, but it is something that I will do further research and try to incorporate published data results in here. We only asked about the growing area specifically because we want to, our plan was to identify labor within the growing area, but yeah, that's a very good idea. We also have other labor happening outside the building, right? Thank you for that. Thank you. Taking a note and adding to the research.
Excellent. Yeah, and feel free to make suggestions as well. You will be the people using this data at the end. So if there is any anything you would like to see and understand better, I see that here there is a suggestion again from Ed Weinberg. The suggestion is to add a general summary question. For example, the operating cost, the total operating cost. And then, do you rank labor as your most expensive cost? And what would be second and third ranked? So that could be another question to be added to the survey or researched a bit.
Yes, we are estimating in that other model that I told you about the profit optimization. We are estimating there the electricity costs and other production related costs and other costs that are not labor. And we have been able to place in that research labor as the most significant cost. In some, yeah, well, it depends. It depends on the cycle that you grow, but taking turns as the first place, we have labor, consumables, which includes seeds and substrate, and electricity. But that's indoor agriculture specific, not greenhouses. In greenhouse, we're going to have a different scenario. Yes, thank you so much for the suggestion. Yeah.
Well, great. Yeah.
We might actually be able to. I'm sorry. Go.
Those are all the questions, unless I missed some. And feel free if you have more questions to ask or comments to make.
I'll stop sharing so I can see you all. If you think of something else later on and you want to contact me, please feel free to send an email and we can have discussions as well.
Excellent. I had a few questions.
Okay.
So one question that I had was, why did you choose a survey format rather than collecting verified financial statements, for example, from different farms?
Right. That's a very good question. That was plan A. We actually tried, but we had two issues. First is that our work was initially focused on indoor agriculture only, and the participants of the industry were not very keen in letting us get into their detailed financial data, which is absolutely understandable as it was an emerging industry. But now that the industry has grown a little bit, we might get more response. But anyway, at that point, we could not access their books. So we found a less an easier way, less intrusive way of asking these questions through the survey. And that's been more successful. Having said that, we would love to look at the real data. If anyone is willing to share, we will not review. We are happy to sign confidentiality agreements. We will not review any data. And whatever we report is on the aggregated data, and there is no way that any specific information can be identified.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and how do you guarantee anonymity in this survey? Like how, can you tell us more about keeping anonymity with answering the survey that you have right now?
Well, we don't collect any identifiable data to start with. We just ask questions about the process. But any reporting that comes out of this survey, any publication, it's going to be like you saw today. It's in percentages. It's in as an index. So there is no specific values that can be identified in the publications that come out of the survey.
Great. Yeah. So we're hoping that that is a motivator to be able to share that that confidential information. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what's your hope? Like how many response you're hoping to get in phase 2?
As many as possible. I think that's the easier answer. The more the merrier. The larger the sample, the more looking like results we will obtain. We have minimum numbers instead of maximum. So if we get less than 50 responses, we cannot do any reporting, because then it's going to be like there's going to be that person that won't characterize it there. So we cannot report if it's less than 50. But the more the merrier. Yeah.
Thanks. One question from Ed Weinberg. How many of the indoor farms surveyed are hydroponic, aeroponic, or aquaponics? Did you ask the question?
We did not. We did not ask that question.
Okay. Any specific reason for not asking that question? What was the idea behind that?
We were focusing on the indoor agriculture only at the beginning, and I think this is what led to not including aquaponic, you mentioned, right? We were not focusing on aquaponic systems. Yeah, but you're right, we could, yeah.
I think at this stage as well, we want some more general data, and before being able to make comparison of productivity or labor need for different type of system.
So can I ask a question to answer that question too? Is aquaponic growing fast in Canada?
In Canada, we don't see many aquaponic farms.
Okay.
I think we've seen some in Europe. That's where it's developing, I believe, more than everywhere else.
Okay.
What about the US?
No, we don't see many here, and that's probably why we didn't think about that in the first place to include, because aquaponics is still struggling to grow here.
Yeah.
At least as much as I know, because I'm focusing in indoor agriculture. My work is in indoor agriculture, but not that I know of.
Okay. A question from Beatrice Lefebvre. Considering labor shortage that we are seeing right now, is there more research question that we could do could ask to explore how urban agriculture can be promoted?
Can promote urban agriculture? Yeah. Okay. There are. So the part of the work I do is with local governments as well. And I've got partners working on identifying labor in minority groups. So I've got a group, minority or other groups that not traditionally reached for the horticultural labor. And we've got a group working with veterans, war veterans, and we're also working with a group of people with development disabilities that could also be part of the labor system. So that's one part of the alternative source of labor that local governments are contributing in this research. I mean, the ones I work with, to try to find alternative sources of labor. And if we identify what are the specific skills required, then we can say, okay, I can find someone in my community, I mean, not someone, but a group in my community that would be perfect for that kind of task. And we never thought about that before, but here we go, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that this research is part of a broader objective of your, Simone, to look more at the potential of the labor potential for this field, right?
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. So I don't see any further questions, and we're reaching our time now. So I guess it's one more. Okay. To clarify the last answer, is it fair to say the indoor farm surveyed are mostly controlled environmental models like hydroponics, aeroponics, not indoor soil-based models?
Yes, it is very much for our reality in the US, at least from what I understand. or most of the indoor farms that I have been working, not only in the US, that I have been working with, the indoor farm would be predominantly hydroponic, aeroponic, and not soil-based.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ah, okay, so instead of aquaponics, okay. Yes, thanks, Ed. Thanks, Kim. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess this is at the end of our time together. Thank you so much for your participation, your question, everyone. Feel free to reach out. We're here, and we'll share the presentation to everyone. And you can share that with your network as well. So, and thank you so much, Simone. It was really, really valuable to have you comment the data and your upcoming work. So we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adeline, for having me, and thank you everyone for coming and participating. Let's keep in touch.
And I just see one last comment about rooftop farming, and I wanted to mention that at AU Lab we have a series of webinars that are going to start, I think next week, on rooftop farming, outdoors, so not controlled environments. And you're welcome to join. It's in French, unfortunately, but I think we can share the link. Do you have the link, Florence? Perfect. Florence just put the link to the different webinars that we have, and feel free to register. They're free as well. Thank you, and have a great day. And for those who are in the US, happy Thanksgiving. And everyone else, just wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.